Max, how are you?
Hey Dom, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It seems a long time since I met you in Chicago at the CMA event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were
Indeed.
one.
Yeah, it
You were
was.
one of the presenters there.
That's right. Yeah, it was a good event. Absolutely, great turnout.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and you were talking about lean, which is a very popular topic.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably one of the things that I'm most passionate about in life. So a little bit about my background, just to kind of, just in case you didn't catch it.
Sure.
I grew up in woodworking. So my dad has a shop. He started out in his garage, one person operation, and grew it to a 30-person operation. And I was fortunate enough to really see that shop grow from one to a 30-person operation and really
Wow.
get an idea of all the struggles that happen at at certain steps of
Hmm.
the growth. And lean was one of those things that just kind of resonated with me, and a set of tools that I really enjoyed and really kind of stuck with me. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm a lean consultant. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
lean.
and you had great reviews on your talk. You know, if people get confused by lean or they get like they don't know what it is. Lean is just a way of thinking.
Absolutely,
And it doesn't
absolutely.
stand for anything like LEAN. It's not an acronym, which I think sometimes gets people like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, also the trouble with lean is you go into the web, right, and you type in lean manufacturing. You're going to be hit with hundreds of tools and acronyms coming from left and right. It gets very, very overwhelming very, very quickly. Um, but I would say the main point of where lean would fail, right, would be understanding what you said, that it's just a way of thinking.
right.
It's a way of improvement, continuous
Yeah.
improvement.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today is reasons lean fails.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because in the work that both you and I do, I'll bet you it fails a ton of times. And what
Mm-hmm.
we have to do is keep trying,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
maybe we should start with a spoiler. You're going to fail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, let's paint a picture here though, so that people listening to the show understand where we're coming at this. You and I speak only to the leaders and the owners of the companies. I have a feeling though that today's episode would be really good for foremen or operations people, production managers to listen to as well.
Hmm. Yep,
And so I'm
definitely.
going to say this to all of the cabinet shop owners, all the furniture shop owners, architecture millwork shop owners, anybody in finished wood trades. If you're listening to this show and you normally keep it to yourself because it's a very owner focused show, I think this episode with Max, his name's actually Massimo. We're not
Indeed.
related,
Yep.
are we, Max?
I don't think so.
No, no, we're both Italian, but we're not related. That we know. We might find that out by the end of the show.
For now.
But I think this is an episode that can be shared with everybody else in that leadership team with you. So, Max, let me hand it back over to you. Let's talk about some reasons that lean would fail in a manufacturing shop.
All right. Well, let me tell you a little bit of a couple stories that I hear very often, right?
Sure, stories are great.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When I'll talk to someone about lean, and they'll respond to me like, "Oh yeah, those are great tools. We tried them a couple of years ago and didn't go anywhere with that, and it all fizzled out. It doesn't stick."
Yeah.
Okay, that's a decent one that I often get. Another one would be, I don't know how lean can happen when my guys just they don't buy in, they don't care,
Mm,
right? I've heard stories of oh, we received a piece of equipment and the equipment came on a pallet, and so we unloaded the equipment, we installed in everything, and the pallet just sat on the warehouse floor for a month. And the owner purposely said, okay, let's see how long this will last.
yeah.
And then it becomes a point of contention. It's like, look at this. How can we do anything if that pallet, they're not even moving? They're always walking around it, walking over it.
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder, do you also hear the comment, hey, listen, that works if you're building 1,000 kitchen cabinets, but we're an architectural millwork shop.
of course.
We don't build the same thing twice.
Absolutely.
Lean ain't going to work here. Do you
I've
hear
gotten
that
that
as well?
many, many times, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah. We don't build widgets.
that's
Yeah.
right. We don't build widgets. We can't use lean here. So how
Right,
do
right.
you? So that's a reason that lean fails is because of an attitude inside the company. Where let's dig that all the way back. Where would you go to start to make it work?
Mm-hmm. So we're talking to a bunch of different size shops right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one message that really does come across, and really is at the crux of lean. And that is the company revolved completely around looking for waste?
Mm.
Is everyone involved in that? Is everyone that is doing the work involved in that idea? So I'm gonna step back even more. The definition that I use, and I'm gonna quote it word for word here, is for lean is a focus on customer value adding work and eliminating or minimizing everything else.
Mm.
Right. So the focus is exactly on that, the value adding work. So if we are doing architectural work, or we're doing cabinetry, or we're doing some kind of a widget, where is the value adding work? Being able to see that.
Yeah.
And having everyone in the organization see that. So whether you're a one-man shop or you're a 50-man shop, that is a skill that everyone in the entire operation must know how to do. Yeah. Because once we do that, once we're able to say, hey, out of this process, let's just say, I'll use an example that everyone might know on this podcast. Let's say we're cutting a piece of wood on a table saw.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple one, right? So an exercise that I might do would be, okay, we've determined that we need to cut a piece of wood. Now, let's really separate all the steps on what's involved in cutting this piece of wood. We walk to the saw. We notice there's stuff on the saw. We have to pull the stuff off the saw from the guy that last left there, right? We have to check the blade, see if it's the right blade. Of course, it's not the right blades. We have to change the blade. We have to remove all the throat guard and the arbor nut, and we have to remove it. We have to go find the right tools to pull off that nut. And where is it? Who knows?
You got to check the plans.
We have to check. Yeah. We have to
all those things.
So we have to do all these things to just make a simple cut. Let's use this exercise and determine what is value adding. The only value adding part in that whole process is dragging that piece of wood through the saw to make the cut. So everything else becomes waste.
Right. You know, I don't know if you saw me hold my phone up for a second there. I did a quick calculation so that we could add some numbers to this conversation. If a person on my floor is making $20 an hour, and I just chose 20.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, choose your own number. Divided by 60 minutes. So $20 divided by 60 minutes. So on a per minute basis, my guy is making 33.333 cents a minute.
Yeah.
Or that's at least my labor cost for 1 minute of pushing something through that saw. So what you're talking about here is eliminating anything except the highest value that person can do to add value to the product we're pushing through.
Absolutely.
Right? So one of my clients says, has a funny saying, $1.50. And we always know as leaders when our message is starting to get through, when the team starts to kind of make fun of us about something. And so this foreman, it's a larger shop, it's about 60 guys. This foreman in the shop keeps talking about every step is $1.50. Well, they ended up making posters of a buck, like a white-tailed deer, one full silhouette and a half, and they left it on his desk. Well, he saw that, and to his credit, he's like, let's make t-shirts, $1.50. Every step is $1.50, because when you count in their total fixed overheads of running the shop, what's their shop rate? One step is $1.50. It's $1.50.
Absolutely.
Right? This 33 cents adds up really fast.
Absolutely.
So I love what you're saying there. How do we think about it so we get everything down to only the things that add value?
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, going back to that table saw, what did we get paid for? We get paid for just dragging that part through. Everything else, really, if we can eliminate it, great. Very often we can't eliminate it. Let's minimize it to a most. Right?
Yeah.
And at that point, we have the definition of the problem that we have to tackle. Right? And that is gold, because now we know, okay, look, this is what we have to fix. This is what we have to tackle here.
Yeah. Let me ask you, instead of telling, what is a really quick I'll say fun, but interesting way that you give business owners to think about lean? Like, what's something they can do almost immediately to go look at their floor and figure out a piece of waste? Piece or time chunk of waste.
So, something like that, a value stream map would be something like what we just did with the table saw.
Yeah.
But instead of just getting a piece of paper, I would actually rope in the team, the guys that use the table saw, right? And get a bunch of Post-its and let's really pull this process apart. Really, 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 really pull it apart. And I'm talking about, okay, a single part of that process might be pressing the on button. That might be just one Post-it.
Yeah.
So really pulling it apart. And it doesn't have to be a table saw. Obviously, this is just an example. But any process.
Yeah.
And pulling it apart. And then we can see, okay, what are we getting paid for? What does the customer really care about? The customer doesn't care about most of the stuff except for what is actually adding value to their product.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. That asking your team we use that here. There's a report that I have. It's actually one of the more popular downloads on my site. It's the finance and forecast meeting agenda and script. It sounds boring as hell. I'll just admit that. But at the very, and so people download that, and at the very end of that meeting, so this meeting is what an owner would have with their top people. So their production manager or foreman and their finance person or bookkeeper and themselves, whatever their mix is. So you have this finance and forecast meeting where you're talking about the numbers of the company. At the very end of that meeting, we do exactly what you talked about, which is we have something called a profit lab. So we run profit lab. So if I'm the owner, I'll say, Max, tell me 3 places in the company where you think we're losing money or wasting time. And can you please write those in your book? And so everybody around the table writes down, blah, blah, blah. We've been talking about. And then as the owner, I'm not going to take the monkey on my back yet. My next step is to say, okay, Max, now tell me 3 ways you think we can fix it. And so write that down. Boom, 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 boom. So now around the table, I should have 9, 12, maybe 15 ideas for where we can do things differently in the company. And just like you said, it's now a conversation. It's part of the culture. It's, hey, the owner always thinks about how do we minimize waste? How do we eliminate non-essential stuff?
I love that, Dom. I really, really do. I think that's where the dissonance happens, right? The owner very often, or the guy that's in charge of the pocketbook, right?
Yeah.
He sees waste. I don't think it's a problem of him seeing lean at all, right? He sees it. He can.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
The owner sees waste. They don't see lean. That's good.
Right? Yeah. They see waste. They see it. They're like an eagle, right? And very often they have to catch their tongue because they're like, hey, how much time do I have? They're doing all their calculations in their head and how many times they're being split apart, left, right, up and down, right? And so like, look, I see this, I know it exists, but I can't do anything about it. So they hold their tongue, right? And lean is all about not burdening that, not putting that monkey on your back, right? It's really, okay, what do you see? Talking to the people that are doing the work every day, day in and day out, what do you see that's bugging you? That's waste, right? Okay, what can we do? And it might be as simple as, oh, well, the paper, the plans, that if they were printed landscape rather than portrait, it would be a lot easier to read or whatever it is. Yeah. Or if they were a bigger paper, and it's not even anything that the owner has to do. It's just like, okay, let's talk to the person that's printing the plans. Let's just do it.
Yeah. Make it better.
Yeah.
And I think people get, hold on, let me stop for a second. Some of the things that I've heard from the people I've worked with is that they feel that it's going to be expensive to put things in place, or they don't have the time, or like you said, my people aren't going to buy in. But if we just ask them the question, they'll buy in. As soon as we ask them the question and we honestly have a conversation, two-way conversation, not just me talking to my guys, but listening to the people on my floor. What do you think we could be doing better? They'll say stuff. One of the more common ones, and we see this more and more often, is hose reels for compressed air.
Yeah.
Hanging above workstations. So think of a bench. How often, and I'll put this challenge to anybody listening, and Max, you've probably seen this too. How often does your bench person go looking for the compressed air hose to clean off the wood? Hopefully they're not doing it with a brush, but maybe they are. Right? how much time does that take? You know, it's only a couple of seconds, Dom. It's a waste of this conversation. It's only a few seconds. Well, if you have 5 people on your floor and each of them takes 10 seconds to clean off their station, they do it 25 times a day, that adds up fast. But if there's only one compressed air hose in the whole shop and they have to walk 6 steps and back, but now they do that 10 times, you see how it starts to expand?
Or better yet, Dom.
What's
how
that?
about the broom? Or better yet, how about the broom?
How do you mean the broom?
The one-shop broom that the whole shop uses.
Yeah.
Forget about compressed air, the one broom, right? So let's take that as an example.
Yeah.
We're cleaning up our work area, but now we have to go and hunt for a broom.
Yeah. The broom and the shovel, you know, the scooping pan.
Of course.
Yeah, I hear what you mean. It just, those are little things, little tiny things that we can talk to our team about.
Absolutely. And it bugs them. It bugs them looking for a broom. It just does.
Yeah. How much does it bug your guys when somebody else borrows one of their tools?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
You know, people that listen to this show know my pet peeve, and it's, I have a problem I need to go see a doctor about. But I hate it. It drives me crazy when hoses and cords and cables aren't coiled properly and put away right. There's a way to do it.
Absolutely. The figure 8, right?
Yeah. I used to hate it when my dad made me do it again. Take it apart, do it again, Don. But now it just makes sense, right? Because when you take it apart and you just plug it in and out it comes, right? And what's funny is I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't know why, but there are 20 videos on YouTube about how to properly coil a hose. Now, I don't think they're all the right ones. There's maybe 2 that I like. Okay, well, share those with your team, right? Make that part of your company standard video training. This is how we coil a hose, coil a cable. So you don't waste time on doing the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you do when you walked into a new shop? Let's say it's, you said your dad had it up to a 30-man operation, 30-people operation. That's a big shop, but you also started at 1. What were some of the changes? Like, and I'll just use random numbers here, but what did it look like at 5 people, at 10 people, at 15 people? What were some of the lean or efficiency things you have to look at, going from 1 to 5, 5 to 10, et cetera?
So I'm going to take the perspective of the owner here, right?
Yeah.
So on a smaller shop, I would say under 5, you're very, very in touch with what's happening every day, every minute, right? So there is a lot of you have your thumb on exactly what's going on. So any waste that's happening, you're identifying it immediately. And yes, maybe we can micromanage a little bit more just because it's right in front of us. We can actually see it, right?
Yeah.
At a 10-person shop, it starts to get a little bit out of control. We might have to get some management rolling in. Okay, I think they say the absolute capacity to go if you want to go absolutely crazy, would be if you have 25 direct reports. That's the absolute maximum human can deal with.
Oh, that's almost too many. Yeah,
that absolutely is. So that's why 10 is kind of like it's starting to get out of control, and you need to get a manager in there.
Yeah,
and so from the perspective of an owner, you don't see what happens every minute of the day anymore, because that it's getting dissolved into management. So now, from the perspective of the owner, to teach lean, you have to now teach lean how to teach lean, right? So when you're at a 5-person shop, you're teaching everyone that's doing the work, hey, this is how to find waste. This is what this is what we're looking for. Let's have conversations. Hey, the coiling of the extension cord, like you said. Let's identify that and let's discuss how to coil an extension cord. Let's make that a standard. So you can be a lot more hands-on. At the management level, once you have management in there, now you have to teach management how to have that conversation.
Right.
And again, the lean operation, where you getting more lean, happens where the value-adding work is. So the more dislocated you are, the more management you are, the less value-adding work you're doing. And the more you have to teach people how to be lean.
It changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what also happens is as the shop continues to grow, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, you become further and further away from value adding work, and you now have to teach people to teach people to teach people type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's very important to now culture becomes this whole big thing that you have to try to grapple with. But if you start right in the beginning on designing a culture, designing this, hey, the only way to work in this one shop is to find waste, and let's discuss it. Let's figure out how we can eliminate it.
Yeah.
So it's actually easy to implement these ideas on a smaller shop and have the shop grow once it's implemented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although you can implement it in a bigger shop as well.
Absolutely.
By just asking questions and then listening to your team.
Absolutely.
Right? Just listening to what they have to say. Or maybe putting it out there as a challenge. I'd like everybody to find one place that they're frustrated every day in doing their work. And they'll say, you know what? Somebody keeps stealing my glue ball.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, yeah. One thing that I'd like to add to that would be, what's the engagement in the shop? So shop owners might say, hey, that's great and all, but my guys are just completely disengaged. They just come in for the paycheck. They do whatever they have to do. If they have to trample that pallet 100 times a day, they'll do it. They won't move it because the way they see it, I'm getting paid by hour. It doesn't matter what I do for that hour. I get my paycheck and I'm out.
Max, I have never heard that. Ever. Yeah, it's too common, isn't it?
Yeah. So straight away with something like that, making that making that the problem that has to be focused on would be really, really important. And that is employee engagement, right?
Yeah.
Where are the employees engaged in their normal everyday job? Yep. Do they care? Do they feel that what they can say actually matters?
Yep.
If they say, hey, that cord it's bugging me. Every time I go to it, it's always wound wrong. And if they say something, will something come of it? Do they care? Does the company care enough about it?
You know, right? It's funny. You and I come at this from a relatively different perspective, but really the same focus is helping business owners be more efficient in running their shop. Slightly different angles. But we're talking about the same things. Like, people that have listened to this show already would recognize everything you're saying as part of other things that we say. And quite often we'll talk about it moving from being a babysitter to the boss. Like, from being the hero to being the coach. Now, how many people view themselves as a coach except maybe me and perhaps you? But if I was to take what you said and try to give that to an owner for how to make that change in a shop where guys are just showing up to punch the clock, is instead of telling our guys what to do, ask them for some ideas about what we can do. Because if I'm just talking at people, they're just going to rely on me to talk at them. And then they know they're going to get in trouble if they do anything outside of what you told me to do. You told me to do that. That's all I do.
Absolutely.
Well, then now they don't have any flexibility, and you have to be the hero. The minute you're not there, they stop doing anything because boss didn't tell me what to do.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
and it can be as simple as splines. Like, I don't know what it could be, the simplest thing. But if I turn it around on floor leadership, when I'm having a meeting with the people on my floor, to ask them a question. Hey, question for everybody. Think about something that's happening at your bench that frustrates you every day, and write it on this piece of paper or say it out loud right now, and we'll write it down. And then choose one and let everybody know you're going to work at a solution, and tell them you did it so that they don't think it was all just lip service and whatever they said got ignored. I agree 100%.
Yeah,
it's so critical. Communicating.
Yeah, and having the people that are doing the value-adding work, having them involved in actually making, hey, if we just simply if we made a spot for my drill where my drill was always in the same spot, and as the foreman or the manager, whoever you are, giving them the responsibility, great. We're in an industry that there's so much creativity. So, hey, go make a spot for the drill, right? Number one, they're going to have tons of pride over making that spot, number one, right?
Yeah.
Number
Making
two,
the rack that holds the drill, you mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that drill is always going to be there because it's their idea. It's their baby. So now we're sticking on to that other point of, hey, we tried this before and it didn't go anywhere. Well, if you're the one always coming up with the ideas and shoving it down, as opposed to the people doing the work coming up with the ideas and then implementing them. It's their ideas. Of course it's going to stick because they want it to stick.
Yeah, because it's their baby. It's their idea, not yours anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, so simple, so incredibly simple. And, anybody listening, I think I want them to understand, both you and I, Max, are talking about just do one thing. Just do one. Find one place.
Yeah. And it's often the smallest, tiniest of things that irritate people. I mean, I'm sure everyone can think about the one thing at their desk, let's say, that bothers them. And it's like, okay, having my stapler, right?
I'm looking at my desk. I'm like, yeah, what are you looking at?
Or like, okay, there's a reason why we always put our stapler in the same spot, right?
Yeah.
That's lean.
Yeah, because I know where it is and I know where to grab it. I use it for a second a day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you partook in putting the stapler away, putting it in the right spot. So of course it's always going to be in the right spot.
Yeah. That's why I think it's funny when people say, Don, we're a custom shop. Lean won't work here. We don't make widgets. Okay. We're not trying to streamline the custom parts of your business. We're trying to streamline the repetitive parts of the business.
Absolutely.
That's all it is. Just streamline that.
Absolutely. So the thing about lean is it's not just a manufacturing set of tools. It also goes into the office also, right? So
great point.
If we have an architectural shop, right, and we're doing just everything and anything under the sun that's made out of wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
There would be a process. There's, a set of plans that are always made, right? There's a general process that always underpins every single set of products, right?
Yeah.
So a set of plans gets made. Well, who's the engineering team and who's the sales team? So you have all these different people that are involved in a process that underpins them all, even though the actual product is different.
Yeah.
But very often the things that, take a lot of time and really suck up all that waste are, hey, the plans, if we had a lot more detail on this particular aspect or whatever it is, then the shop guys don't have to go back and forth to the office asking questions because it's already done. But then that conversation can be had.
Right. Yeah.
Because we'd be discussing the process. Yeah.
Max, I'm glad you brought that up because quite often the owners will look at the floor and say, look at all the waste. And the floor quietly to themselves says, what about you guys in the office? Right? Why are you just bugging us for lean? One of the things that I find a lot of value in, and sometimes I get heat, I get kickback from the people I work with, is just the simplicity of creating flowcharts.
Mm-hmm.
Flowchart your systems. At the top of our system is, depending on the way you run your business, maybe it's marketing and sales, or it's estimating and tenders, estimating and bids, right? So that's where business comes in. Then we win the job. Then then where does it go in your shop? Engineering, drafting, nesting, whatever it does, right? You have to make your own flowchart for the whole business process and have that as one flowchart. And then each of those boxes has its own flowchart. How Absolutely. We estimate, how we bid, how we nest Absolutely. Plans, how we send Absolutely. Plans to the floor, how the floor, how it goes to machining, and then how it goes to assembly, and all of those things mm-hmm. have their own flowchart. And flowcharts are nice because you don't even need to speak the same language. If you have your flowcharts done well enough, you can do it with pictures.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all part of the process.
To kind of give a little bit more insight in the office world, right? If we're doing those flowcharts and we annotate a single person, somehow we make like an emoji or something, or take their picture, or you make the flowchart where you can actually put the person in a certain area. But if you say, okay, we have four people in our office, let's annotate each particular task of this flowchart with a certain person, you can very quickly start to see bottlenecks that form. It's like, right. We're always waiting on accounting to approve whatever it is that we have to approve. How can we, and then now this is the question, now we're starting to get lean here, because now we have this question of how can we get this process, how can we get the info that accounting needs in order for them to approve it quicker, or whatever it might be, or does accounting even need to approve this? we can get everyone in the room. We can start to actually talk about our process and really start to pull it apart and eliminate our bottlenecks, or at least minimize them.
Yeah, or just know where they are. Once we
Yeah.
recognize a bottleneck, it's human nature. We're business
Absolutely.
owners. We're used to dealing with problems and finding solutions. As soon as we recognize the issue and monetize it, by the way. So that's why I did the per minute cost. You know, $20 an hour person is 33 cents a minute. And that's just their wage. It's not the burden rate. It's not all the fixed overheads. It's not all the variable. Just 33. Now that people think that, there's a couple of people listening to the show already going, 33 cents. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. That guy wasted 5 minutes. That's $1.50. Whatever it is, we just have to get on it. Well, Max, this has been great. If you're in New York?
I'm in New York, yep. Studio 5Y in New York.
Yeah, that's your company, Studio 5. How do you spell that?
Studio, Studio, the number 5Y. I know it's a sounds funny at first, but 5Y is actually a lean tool that gets the root cause of issues. So you ask why 5 times and you tend to get to that root cause. Yeah.
Get to that root cause. If people want to contact you, that's the website. Just go to studio5y.com.
That's it. That's me.
Yeah. And then you're on the speaking tour like myself. I mean, you were speaking at the CMA a couple of weeks ago. Do you have any upcoming events you'll be speaking at again?
Nothing booked quite yet, but I'll keep you posted for sure.
Yeah, well, it gets busier again towards the fall, so I'm sure we'll see you out there. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. There's been tons of takeaways, a lot of really good stuff here.
Great, Dom.
And I like the fact that you come from going from 1 to 30 in the shop, and you probably talked about it at the dinner table your entire life too.
Absolutely.
All right, Max. Everybody, thank you very much for listening in. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this show and to learn from people like Max so that you can go back and apply these things in your shop. The big takeaway I got from you today, Max, was talk to your people and get the ideas from them so they're bought in. And that there's tons of really easy fixes that we can make that start to pick away at the profit leaks in our business. That's what I got.
That's it.
All right. Thanks, Max. Have a great day, and I look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Have a great one. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.